So now it is my pleasure to welcome Audrey Lowe, Physiotherapy Alberta's Continuing Competence Program Manager, to talk to us about the new program. Audrey, thank you for agreeing to present this webinar to our members. And now, over to you.
Thanks, Nancy. Just to let you know, this presentation is about 45 minutes, so there'll be plenty of time for questions at the end. The words continuing competence have only been around since the 1990s. With the inclusion of that term, continuing competence, into the Health Professions Act in Alberta in 2000, those two words have come to mean different things to different people. Is continuing competence about ensuring you are meeting practice standards? Is it about how many courses you take? Is it about how you perform your daily job? Or ensuring that you react and appropriately respond to emergencies and other unusual, complex practice problems? Is it about how you reflect and assess your practice and take steps to improve it? Perhaps continuing competence is all of above, and it varies on the situation at hand. Nowadays, continuing competence is a concept that struggles to be defined into a nice, neat sentence, making it hard to operationalize. A modernized view of physiotherapists' continuing competence sees it as a state that is influenced by 4 factors that interact based on the situation at hand. Those factors are the defined competencies and performance expectations for physiotherapist professionals, their personal characteristics and capabilities, where a physiotherapist is within their career continuum, and their practice context, including the types of patients they see and other aspects of their work environment, including physical and social structures. For Physiotherapy Alberta, continuing competence is a program we have to implement as part of the Health Professions Act. That program must allow for physiotherapists to maintain competence and to enhance the provision of professional services, with the option of conducting practice visits. For our members, the Continuing Competence Program, introduced in 2012, became something that was time-consuming to complete, required completion of a set of activities that weren't considered relevant, and were insufficient in allowing a physiotherapist to personally show how they remain competent in practice. Furthermore, it caused anxiety for physiotherapists whose continuing competence records were undergoing review. Early on in my work in continuing competence programming, I heard a prominent speaker in this area liken finding the right continuing competence programming strategy to questing after the Holy Grail. At the time, I really thought it was a funny analogy, but it makes sense now to me. Questing after the Holy Grail is associated with an object or goal that is earnestly sought after for its great significance. Questing after a Holy Grail is a noble pursuit. There's general agreement that continuing competence is all about striving to do better, and doing better is always a noble and necessary part of being a physiotherapist professional. Physiotherapists want to do better, and so does Physiotherapy Alberta. It wants to find a program strategy that works. In this sense, the Holy Grail and the continuing competence are linked. In redesigning its continuing competence program, Council wanted to reuse already developed strategies to provide increased choices for members, to keep a reflective reporting component, and to modernize the program by incorporating research evidence on risks and supports to competence in health professionals. So with that said, I would like to introduce the new Continuing Competence Program. And if the results of our pilot test are any indication, I think with this version we are closer to finding a continuing competence Holy Grail. In this presentation, I will address the following areas. After the presentation, you should be ready to get started on your self-selected activity. We call this new program Do, Learn, Grow. It's based on the assumption that active participation helps build competence. Doing the right activities with the right mindset, a do-better mindset, leads to learning, and learning supports competent practice. There are two main components to the program: a self-selected activity and a college-selected activity. General Register members will be expected to complete both each registration year, which spans October 1 to September 30th. The program was launched in December, so it's operational now. Here's a snapshot of the differences between the self-selected activity and college-selected activity. Self-selected activity. Do participate in an activity that is relevant to you and will improve your practice. Learn. Ensure that activity participation achieves significant learning and meaningful outcomes that are relevant to your practice context. If it does, then it can be used for your self-selected activity and meet our program requirements. Grow. After you've completed your activity, write about it, your experiences and its outcomes in a record which is submitted for practice permit renewal. This is your story of growth. The college-selected activity. Do an annual activity that the college prescribes. The topic and format of that activity will vary. Learn. The topic is one that Physiotherapy Alberta deems important that the profession know about. Learning together at the same time will foster a common, collective understanding of a specific topic. We want you to learn together and discuss the topic together. Grow. The college will structure its activity to support learning and its application. The college tracks participation and success. Let's dive deeper into the self-selected activities. There are 43 activities listed on our website. The handout associated with this presentation is a copy of what's on the website. The activity you use to meet the self-selected activity requirement can be something that has been assigned as part of your job, or it can be something you pursued personally for professional development. The activity and reporting must be carried out during the registration year. So this is October 1 until you renew in September. Whatever you do, it must result in deep, significant learning and sustained improvement. So it must improve your personal competence and some aspect of your professional practice, patient care practices, or improve your work environment, the physiotherapy health service in some way. You will be writing about your experience, so choose an activity where learning has stuck and is being applied in a meaningful way to improve your practice. A little bit more about these self-selected activities. First of all, they are evidence-based. The activity list comes from research which inventoried a broad range of activities reported to mitigate the risk of discompetence in health professionals and improve competence in professionals. We took the list and tailored it to the Physiotherapy Alberta culture. The activity list is modernized because it allows people to discuss learning arising from participation in not only formal and self-organized activities, but also report on activities leading to non-formal learning. So what's non-formal learning? Non-formal learning comes from participation in an activity where one doesn't set out to intentionally learn, but learning is a byproduct of participation. So the word cloud I started with, there's lots of ways to improve competence. This program acknowledges and respects all of those ways. We've divided our activity list into 3 buckets. Let's look at those buckets in a little more detail. So bucket number 1 in the blue-greenish color lists activities where practice is monitored and reviewed against external benchmarks. We want physiotherapists to receive credit for practice review and monitoring activities. Regulation focuses on developing standards and benchmarks, which we want you to pay attention to as part of meeting the minimum standards for practice, but also for quality improvement. The more you can check and benchmark your practice, the better it becomes, usually because practice assessment is the first step in a cycle of improvement. Any type of analysis against external benchmarks and gathering external feedback on practice confirms that you are on track with meeting standards and more often than not identifies gaps to be addressed for further action. We know in provinces where they do conduct practice visits of physiotherapists, 5 to 22% of the physiotherapists reviewed aren't meeting the standards. Practice monitoring is a good first step to help ensure that you are on track, that you are identifying areas that need improvement, and we want you to be vigilant and make sure that you are meeting our standards. In bucket number 2, it groups activities focused on obtaining, translating, and creating knowledge for performance and practice improvement. This group includes formally organized courses and self-organized learning events or activities adopted as part of a teaching or researching role. Bucket number 3 is activities focused on professional collaboration. This is where you contribute to the development of others or the profession at large. This bucket acknowledges that participation in activities fostering professional connectivity and professional leadership, such as supervisory and volunteering, mentoring, can cause learning and enhance your competence. You may not set out to intentionally learn, but you do because of the nature of the activity. Connecting with others triggers growth. So here's a list of the activities on the website and in your handout. If you go to our website and you find this table doesn't pop up after a minute or so, it's a browser issue. It's related to your internet browser. It never works for me when I'm in Chrome. Consider switching browsers, or at the top here where the green line is and the title, you can click on that link, which opens a one-page document with the list of self-selected activities. The first column in purple lists practice monitoring and review activities. It groups them into those focusing on the assessment of personal characteristics. The second box looks at the review of patient care practices. And then there's 2 boxes, actually. There's 4 boxes here, but it's cut off by the screenshot. Focus on the work environment. So one focuses on quality practice, and the second, or the 4th box, is focusing on safety practices. The second column in blue groups the activities focusing on the acquisition of knowledge creation and translation. We know that most physiotherapists use activities like this to meet the requirements for the learning planner and tracker in the Reflective Practice Review Program. The third column in green lists professional collaboration activities. We think this list provided is comprehensive and captures what physiotherapists already do to improve their competence. In our pilot test, the 660 physiotherapists who participated had no difficulty finding an activity from our list to report on. That said, if you have an activity that isn't listed here and you want to use it for the Continuing Competence Program, as long as it meets our criteria for a self-selected activity, you can. Now, a bit about the black crosses. They indicate that there's a form available for downloading. What we did was take any of the practice review tools that we have developed either for the Continuing Competence Program or through our quality improvement initiatives and formatted them so that you can download them and use them. We developed these tools, we want our members to use them, and we're trying to make them really easy for you to use. So when you go on the website, you'll click on a black arrow and the document will come up and be available for downloading. So we're going to look at these activities in a little more detail. Again, you can refer to your handout. Under practice monitoring and review, we've subdivided the groups as I've talked about. The first subgroup focuses on looking at personal characteristics, and so anything like a performance evaluation, self-assessment, taking a test and getting a result of that test, either for formative or summative feedback is important. Looking at your career path, setting goals, all of these you are required to assess your personal characteristics and take stock, and so they will fit into this particular bucket of monitoring and practice review. The second group looks in detail or has ideas of what you can do for examining patient care practices, a chart audit, looking at patient satisfaction surveys. This is where we put the patient care reflection. There's something called a chart stimulated recall, which is the patient care reflection in an interview format. Anything to do with assessing patient outcomes, looking at photo data. The next group, which is cut off, looks at quality improvement activities such as privacy practices, audit, doing an environmental scan as part of a quality improvement cycle, and then further on, that was cut off from our original screen, but things like accreditation, undergoing accreditation and preparing for that, looking at any kind of safety issues, risk management issues, safety incidences, and having to report on that. So that's what falls under the practice monitoring and review bucket. The next bucket is knowledge acquisition, creation, and translation. So anything such as attending courses, reading articles, teaching, conducting presentations, writing, researching, anything to do with keeping up with evidence, relearning old information and learning new information, facts and techniques fall into this bucket. The third activity and the third bucket involves professional collaboration. So participation in mentoring, supervising, sharing knowledge with a community of practice such as Ignite Physiotherapy, volunteering for big projects such as being a subject matter expert, volunteering for Physiotherapy Alberta or the Canadian Physiotherapy Association. These are activities where you get involved and contribute to the development of others or bigger projects. In the process, you learn new information as well as something about yourself. Now that you know what's in the self-selected activity list, you should have an idea of what you might want to use to meet the program for this year. So you've narrowed down and scanned all of what you do in a year to start thinking about one activity that you will use to meet the Continuing Competence Program requirements. In the Do, Learn, Grow program, you will write about your activity after you've completed it. There's no more assessing your practice, stating a goal, developing a plan, and telling Physiotherapy Alberta 1 year what you think you will do, and then the following year reporting on what you've actually accomplished. We want to hear about the activity after you've completed it. Your story is going to tell us why you chose your activity, why it is important to you and your practice, how you put your ideas into action, and the outcomes, what you learned, and the impacts on your practice, your patients, and your workplace. We know you tell good stories. We've read them in your reflective practice review records. The reporting form that you will use is called the Practice Improvement Record. Reporting is mandatory, and the reporting form will be web-based. This online form will be accessed through your member portal. A new member portal is being constructed and will be open in April 2019. After the portal opens, the practice improvement record will be available for completion year-round. You'll be able to log in anytime, day or night, and write up your reflection. The submission of your practice improvement record will be required for practice permit renewal. You will have to hit a submit button at the renewal time for us to receive what you've written. Physiotherapy Alberta will track your submission and review the entries in your record. The following principles should guide how you construct your story. It should be an authentic and meaningful representation of what you did to develop competence and enhance practice. You need to provide specific details on completed activities. List the resources you use. We need to know that you are still using current and factual information to inform your practice decisions. Resources can include research, articles, guidelines, reports, scales, outcomes, audits, consulting experts in the field. When you list your resource, it doesn't have to be an academic citation. You can use an academic citation if you want, but we want the name, the topic, the title, and your source. Provide a web link, copy a journal title down. If you still want to write or copy a citation, you can, but it's not something that we're going to judge you poorly if you aren't able to come up with that. In terms of your record, remember Council wanted reflective reporting, so include reflection. Show your ideas and critical thinking. Discuss participation and its impacts on your personal learning and competence, as well as the broader impacts that your activity has achieved in terms of improving patient care or the physiotherapy or general health system. Your story should contain evidence of participation. This is achieved through how you construct your story, but also there's an area where you can upload and attach items to your record, such as work samples, certificates. In our pilot test, we even had someone upload articles they've written and a master's thesis of a student that they had supervised. There are 4 key sections in the practice improvement form, which is shown on the right side of your screen, but also I think it's a handout. So 3 of the sections have reflection questions. We've also developed a supplement called guiding questions. Those supplementary questions are designed to also assist you with the reflection process. Section 1 requires that you describe your activity and provide some details on it, why you chose it for improving your practice. Section 2 is all about the impacts on your personal competence as well as your practice. Section 3 relates your activity back to our physiotherapy standards and codes of ethics. So again, if you're learning something, we do want to make sure that it broadly fits with our defined expectations for professional practice. And Section 4 is all about what you might want to share by way of evidence. So remember, this reporting form is about reflection. It's not just reporting. Keep to the principles I have mentioned. You can use a point form or a sentence structure. Both are okay as long as they meet the principles that I've outlined. No time limit has been specified. We want you to do a good job for completing this form. In our pilot test, most physiotherapists spent about 1 hour completing their record. This record is your story, what you did to acquire and apply your knowledge to a situation, how you transformed ideas into better practice. Don't be afraid to write about failures as well as successes. Both contribute to learning and practice improvement. We need to read that you've maintained your competence and enhanced the provision of professional services. So when we pilot tested the practice improvement record, physiotherapists indicated that completing the record extended their learning, and I'm sharing a couple of the comments that they made about the experience. So when I read these comments from the pilot testers, I knew Physiotherapy Alberta was on the right track with our new program. I don't know what writing about this activity will do for you, but I want you to try and, when you are completing it, give yourself enough time to use it as an opportunity to extend your learning. If you want to learn what it did for your peers, we have put real stories told by real physiotherapists into 11 example practice improvement records. There are examples for all three buckets. There's stories about rolling out a project in the hospital, conducting a safety audit, completing a patient care reflection and how it steamrolled into a whole new project in someone's department, how they've conducted research, what they've learned through supervising a student. I strongly recommend that you read at least one of these examples before completing your practice improvement record. So we've covered off the self-selected activities, and now we're on to the college-selected activity. So it's something that you will be required to complete annually. You must complete it successfully to renew your practice permit. The window for completion will be defined. It will be a period of time within the registration year, such as 8 weeks that we gave people to complete the jurisprudence exam that was offered up in 2017. Whatever the activity is, the amount of time provided to you to complete it will be reasonable. The college is going to select the topic, and it will be in the profession's and public's interest. With everyone participating together to learn about the same topic, it helps foster connectivity. It ensures a profession-wide and collective and common understanding of a topic. We want you to talk to your peers about the topic when you're learning about it. Each year, the purpose, nature, and format will vary, and so will the success criteria. With each college-selected activity, Physiotherapy Alberta is going to email a member with a description of the activity and individualized instructions on how to complete it. Follow-up emails with the completion deadlines will be sent. Physiotherapy Alberta News will also contain information about the college-selected activity. Expect the first email to land in your email box in March this year. So let's just review. Do, Learn, Grow involves completion of a self-selected and a college-selected activity. Both are mandatory and will be needed to renew your practice permit. You can start on your self-selected activity now. The college-selected activity will be introduced to you in March. The topic of the self-selected activity is member-driven and really relevant to your practice. It serves your needs. The topic of the college-selected activity is college-driven, and the relevance weighted towards college-identified needs. The self-selected activity's nature and format will be driven by the type of activity you select. The college-selected activity, its purpose and desired outcomes will drive the educational strategies we use. The strategy for sure will be aimed at ensuring good knowledge uptake and application to practice. In terms of reporting for the self-selected activity, it will be web-based via your practice improvement record, which will be accessed through your member portal. The college-selected activity reporting will be driven by the type of activity, but where possible, it will be online. Platforms and portals may vary. The participation for the self-selected activity is the entire registration year, October 1 until you renew. For the self-selected activity, it will be a defined period within the registration year. For monitoring of participation and success, We will track submissions of your practice improvement records. Physiotherapy Alberta is also going to read what you've written. So each year, a proportion of submitted records will be randomly selected and reviewed by staff working under the direction of the registrar. So there won't be the competence committee involved in reviewing your records. The review is going to be conducted against the reporting principles that I discussed for the practice improvement record. The examples on the website have all been reviewed and all meet the record review requirements. When we've finished our review, you will be notified of the results. Members' participation and successful completion of the college-selected activity will be tracked. The success criteria will be communicated at the launch of each activity. Now, we always have a plan to work with members who are not able to complete the program. So for some reason, if you think you will have problems meeting the program requirements, contact the college to discuss your issues. So with this redesign, from the outset, the old program was to be recycled into the new. We've had physiotherapists tell us they like all or some portions of the reflective practice review, and we've had some physiotherapists tell us they like the jurisprudence. So we designed the program to integrate the old continuing competence program into the new. All of the reflective practice review activities were integrated into the self-selected activity list. All of the reflective practice review activities can now be found under that practice, monitoring, and review bucket. What's different from the reflective practice review is we only expect you to complete one of these activities, and they're only one of 43 choices. Whereas in the reflective practice review, we were asking that you complete 3 every year. We did update the reflective practice review tools as we transitioned them over to align them with changes. So, for example, the competency self-assessment, and thanks to the competence committee for this, we updated it. It's based on the new essential competency profile, which became available in 2017, and there's a better questions and format to it. The patient care reflection is largely unchanged, and the learning tracker, we aligned the reflection questions in the learning planner and tracker to the practice improvement questions. So if you complete the new personal learning plan, what it's titled, all you would have to do is cut and paste your reflections into your practice improvement record. There might be some minor editing needed, but that's fine. The jurisprudence examination now becomes a college-selected activity. So expect to write a jurisprudence exam. We offered it before every 5 years, and there's no decision as to whether we're going to keep that 5-year cycle or change it. In terms of transitioning from the reflective practice review for 2008 to the new Do, Learn, Grow program for the reporting in 2019, we recognize that you might want to use the reflective practice review and continue using it. So we have some choices here. First of all, if you want to use your 2008 learning plan to meet the requirements, continue to implement your plan. And then once you've finished it, you can write about your experiences in the practice improvement record. You'll be able to cut and paste some of the information that you've written already into the practice improvement record. If you've already completed your learning planner and tracker and your reflections, just hold on and wait until the practice improvement record is available in April, and that's when you can transfer the information over. As you transfer the information over, just ensure that you've answered the questions in the practice improvement record. Do not put your reflections into the Reflective Practice Review web-based Skillshare program. And the reason is we're going to be retiring that program. So if you're going to write them down, you might want to put them in a Word document or use the Personal Learning Planner and Tracker. If you want to continue with a patient care reflection or look at the new competency self-assessment, you would treat them like any other new self-selected activity. You download the forms from our website, fill them out, and then if they meet the criteria of contributing to your learning as well as achieving significant impacts and improvements in practice, then go on to report on that experience in your practice improvement record. The college is not requiring you to keep your reflective practice review records. If you keep them, they will it's to serve your interests. So with the launch of this new reporting platform, we will retire the old platform, which you use to store your reflective practice records. So the platform is going to be retired on September 30th. After that date, no one physiotherapist, as well as staff at Physiotherapy Alberta, will be able to access this platform. Between now and September 30th, Physiotherapy Alberta will be providing physiotherapists who use the platform. We're going to give you additional communication and instructions and support on how to retrieve and archive your reflective practice review information. Some important places for information. Number one, our website will always have current information about the program. You can find information about your registration and the Continuing Competence Program under the Physiotherapist tab, how to maintain your registration, and then the drop-down will be information on the Continuing Competence Program. So this is where you can read about the self-selected activity and find examples, look at the form, look at the guiding questions. I always found it was surprising because in the past, when I dealt with people about the continuing competence, I ran into quite a few who had never read about the program to fully understand what was expected of them. So please, I do encourage you that you will spend some time to review the website on the Do, Learn, Grow program. In terms of logging in to your member portal, there's always a login widget on the upper right-hand corner of the website. The new member portal, again, is going to be launched in April. It will be changing. So when you look down to the lower box, the member portal now will have a menu of items related to your registration and your registration information. And the practice improvement record will be one of the options on that menu of items. So we are using multiple media to communicate about the program. As I said, the website will always be a current source. We also have on our website, if you see our email address, as you read through the website, if you have a question, find our email address on that first page of the Do, Learn, Grow web page, and you can pull up the email, send us your feedback if you have a question, send us your feedback on the contents of the web page, and that just will land in our email box, and we'll be able to just answer any questions that you have. Individualized emails. We're going to use them for important announcements. They'll be communicating completion instructions and deadlines. So I cannot stress the importance of ensuring that your email is configured to accept Physiotherapy Alberta communication and emails, and we use a list server to send them out. So often if you're part of a bigger organization, our emails are filtered out by that privacy or spam filters, and they end up in a spam folder. So it's your responsibility to configure your emails to accept communication from Physiotherapy Alberta, or at least monitor your email junk and spam folders for our communication. Physiotherapy Alberta newsletter will continue to have articles and general announcements about the Do, Learn, Grow program. We will use special events like this webinar. We'll reach out to you and tell you about the program. The college plans a roadshow this spring, and we will be discussing the program at that roadshow. Staff will, if invited, come out to conduct a presentation at your site. And as always, competent staff are a phone call or an email away to help you understand the program or address any technical or access issues. You just have to email us. So my closing remarks, if there's anything you take away from this presentation, it's that the program is in effect now. Try to learn more about the program. I recommend that you spend 20 minutes reading about the program on the website, taking a look at the list of self-selected activities, look at the practice improvement record and the guiding questions supplement, read at least one example, look over the practice monitoring and assessment tools that we've developed. Prepare for your self-selected activity. If you're using your learning plan, keep working on it and then complete a practice improvement record on that experience. If you're using something else, decide what it will be. Keep an eye out for our email in March about the college selected activity. And that's about all I have to say about the new Continuing Competence Program. I hope it's an enjoyable experience as you meet our new requirements. Thanks, Nancy, and I'm ready for questions.
Hi there. Thanks very much, Audrey, for that presentation. I think it was pretty clear in directing members and all of us where we find the information we know. I'd ask the audience, if you have questions, please type them into your question box, and we will start to answer them. I do have one question that came in at the very beginning, asking about external benchmark standards. What do you mean by that, and can you explain any more about what external benchmark standards are?
So, obviously, we have our practice standards and our competency profile and our code of ethics. So those are our standards for practice, for professional practice. But an external benchmark could be something in a quality improvement initiative where you are benchmarking your practice against another organization's. So it could be meeting safety standards that are outlined for your organization. Often there are, those have been filtered down from other legislation that affects professional practice. In terms of assessing your personal characteristics, it may be the elements of a performance review or your job description. If you're digging down and looking at your personal characteristics a little bit more, we also had a module that we've developed through the Quality Improvement Initiative that looks at burnout. Most of our Career Compass also asks you to do a self-assessment to take stock. So many of our initiatives, there's some form of self-assessment involved. So those are external benchmarks as well, that they've deconstructed a particular aspect of your personal characteristic or competency and are asking you to reflect on that. External benchmark to me also could be receiving feedback. The chart-stimulated recall tool, for example, is basically an interview format of the patient care reflection. I hope that's answered your question. If you have a particular external benchmark that you are thinking about, please just give me a call. But we've left it pretty wide open. It's just personal constructions of competence alone are not sufficient, partly because we are evolutionarily hardwired to see ourselves and our practice through rose-colored glasses. And so anchoring our perceptions and using some external lens to view our practice is a good thing. So I hope I've answered the question, but please contact me personally to discuss further, or just let me know via the chat box whether I've given you enough information to proceed along that line should you want to.
Thanks, Audrey. We have a couple questions about emails of the slide presentation or handouts. We don't have the slide presentation available for members. Members certainly are welcome to, as of, I would suggest Monday, the webinar will be available for any of your colleagues who haven't been able to attend. There's also all the information that Audrey has pointed out on the website to help guide members, and or they can direct questions to Audrey as per her contact information. The handout, there was another question about handouts. If you go to the bottom of your screen and hover over some of those icons, you'll see one that says resources. The two handouts that Audrey has put up for you, the resources are available there. Now, we do have a question about what if you will be away for the duration or part of the college-selected activity? Will the college be flexible in allowing you to complete this requirement?
The answer is I don't know, because it depends on your particular context. The college-selected activity, it will depend on the nature of the format. Where possible, it's going to be online and web-based. So there's that issue. But I'm not going to answer that question. Like I said, we have a backup plan. We always have a backup plan to work with members. But I'm not going to go on publicly right now and say yes or no to that question. If you're having issues, the route that you should take is as soon as you are aware that you might be having issues, you bring it forth, and there's processes, internal processes, for us to make a decision regarding your specific circumstances. Is there a follow-up question to that, Nancy?
Nope, but I was muted and talking at the same time. I'm sorry.
Okay, great.
I think you've answered this, but how much time do you expect all of this to take on average? I'm not going to specify what the averages are. For example, I gave you a ballpark figure of what the approximate time for most people in terms of completing the practice improvement record is. I can't, for your self-selected activity, it's been constructed so that an activity you do for your work or job can count. I can't predict how long that would take. Me personally, a 8-hour recorded webinar that I use for my learning plan, it took me 16 hours to actually review it and go through the information to learn the information. And then there was the part of applying to the practice. My write-up of that experience took me about an hour. As I went through and wrote about it, it caused me to go and review my information from that webinar. Everyone's experience is different. The rule is whatever you write about, it should have improved your personal competence, helped you maintain your competence, and enhanced your practice. And we want to, and I put it to council. Council wanted a reflective recording approach. Thanks, Audrey. Just to confirm that the old platform transfer to be archived will be sent out to us at some point.
Absolutely. What we're doing right now is we're trying to identify which physiotherapists use the platform. And then what we'll do is the first question will be, do you want to retrieve and archive your information, or are you just going to let it go? Because we will not be expecting you keep your reflective practice review information if you're on the general registrar. If for some reason you are on leave and you've let your information go, we might need your reflective practice review information when you reinstate. But for the bulk of you who are already on the general registrar, we will not need your reflective practice review information. So if you use it, it's for your personal use, and you will get some communication that sort of says, contact us if you want our support and help for getting your information off that Skillshare online platform.
Okay. We have a couple of questions from new grads wondering if they need to complete both the self and college selected activities this year, or as in the 2018-2019 year, or if we only need to start in October 2019 to 2020 year.
So the program is operational now, and with new grads, it's really hard for me to answer that question because I don't know when you came on to our register. Okay, so what I would say is with new grads, be prepared to complete your self-selected activity. And yes, you will be expected, if you are on the general register now, this program went live in December. So be prepared to complete your self-selected activity, and then also you will receive the email about the college-selected activity. You will monitor your emails for instructions because Physiotherapy Alberta will always send you an email about what you need to do when to meet your renewal requirements.
Thanks, Audrey.
If you have individual questions, refer to the letter that was sent to you by our registration department because it contains instructions about meeting the continuing competence program requirements. Don't ask your friends. Refer to the communication that Physiotherapy Alberta has provided you, or call the college. Because everybody, the rules are slightly different sometimes depending on when you registered with the college.
Okay, thanks. A couple of questions around when they can have started to use courses. So if courses were completed in October or November, so after the current year's registration of 2018, can it be used in the self-assessment activity?
So if the courses that you used in October 1 onwards can be used.
Okay, I know there's a couple questions around examples of the college-selected activities. I don't think that, if you want to answer that, Audrey, I'm not sure that we have any ideas.
No, so you are going to receive an email that discusses what the topic will be, and the topic will be about Bill 21, which is a bill to protect patient rights. The government passed this bill in November, and there are really tight timelines for the college to develop some information about it. But beyond that, we haven't decided the time period. We think it won't be in March. It'll be later on in the registration year. we have to make sure that we've fulfilled the government's expectations for getting all our ducks in a row about Bill 21. So I can tell you the topic is there. We had to develop a practice standard around that, and that has been submitted to the government. So the practice standard will have to come up on our website and be made available to all of you, and then the learning activity will be around that topic. So March will be when we have a better understanding of how that's going to roll out to you, but the actual activity itself will be later this year. That's all I have to say, because that's all we have right now. But this is an example of the college. Your learning will meet the college's needs because the government has imposed something on the college to bring forth to our membership.
Okay. If you are on a leave of absence, so you're not actually on the general register, will you still be expected to complete the self-selected and college-selected activities in the year that you're not on? Okay.
So if this program is applicable to general register members. So if you are on leave but still part of the general register, you're not working, but you're on the general register, you must participate in the program. If you are not on the general register, you will not be expected to participate while you are off the general register, but you will be accountable for making it up when you reinstate.
Okay, so that probably answers the next question when you're working as
a
cadre.
Nancy, can I just add something? If there's anyone currently who is listening to this webinar and they have come off, they were a general register, for 2017, 2018, but for some reason they're now off, they've canceled their license and they're now off the general register, please contact us, because you're caught in a transition and there's some additional rules that apply. So contact us and we need to be able to discuss or tell them individually what the expectations are.
Thanks, Audrey. There's a question related to working as a casual physiotherapist. If you are on the general register, regardless of full-time, part-time, or casual, you will be expected to complete these activities. Is that correct?
Absolutely. If you hold a practice permit, this is a practice permit renewal requirement.
Okay. Would a webinar like this from the college count as a self-selected activity?
Absolutely. But again, personal learning and how does it improve your practice in a significant and meaningful way? Personally, I would choose, if you're going to write and talk about reflective reporting, find something that is really meaningful to you in your professional practice. And hey, it supports my ego if you find this webinar improving your personal competence and your professional practice in a significant way. But I'm sort of thinking, surely there must be something bigger that you do to improve the lives of your patients or your workmates or your work environment than this webinar. But sure, if you want to write about it, go for it.
Thanks, Audrey. Rhonda, yes, any course that you completed after October 1st of 2018 would count as part of this. I know your audio cut out, but that was the answer to that question. And the final question I have is, what platform will the college be using to audit this year?
What will happen is you will enter your practice improvement record You will enter information into the practice improvement record. You will submit that record at registration renewal, and that's all you need to do. On the back end, we will be pulling off a proportion of those records and reading through them. Now, I have to say, we read through all of the pilot tests, and I took a proportion of those and reviewed them against our records review criteria, and there was one was questionable, and the rest, everyone by far, told great stories, and they met the reporting principles that we had outlined. It wasn't a problem.
Good. Okay, well, that's the last of our questions, and we've run out of time. I do want to thank Diana. She has written the new Continuing Competence Program. Sounds much clearer to me already. Thank you for the work on this change. With that said, I would like to thank Audrey for her presentation and for all the work. Sitting in an office with Audrey, I know how many hours that she and the committee have put into this new program to make sure that it's flexible and responsive to members' needs. So thank you very much for all of that work. Thank you, audience, for attending. Please keep in mind the next webinar by Moira McAllister on around the Physiotherapy Alberta complaints process and ongoing issues. So with that, I'm going to sign off, and remember that the webinar will be available probably as of Monday for any of your colleagues who are not able to attend. Thank you very much, and goodbye.